Welcome to the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast. This is your host, Scott Ramage. Uh, Story with that. And today on the show, it's been Timm, the man with two first names. And Ben was in the Marine Corps. He'll tell me a little more about that. He said a helicopter gun runner. Is that correct?
Helicopter door gunner.
There we go. I already
But
messed
yeah.
up the intro, but that makes this so much more exciting. He's been into strength sports for many, many years. He was a fitness instructor in the military. He is a gym owner. Get this, his gym is in San Diego and the man lives in Tennessee. And he currently works for UpLaunch. And more importantly, he's a father and he's a husband. Welcome to the show, Ben.
I'm super excited to be here, guys. The big fan, and the first time I saw the Brotherhood of Fatherhood, it was like, I need to be part of this group. Like this, that sounds like people that I want to hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, go figure. You're in the fitness industry, and Josh and I are in the fitness industry, and a lot of people are in the fitness industry in here, but we're not exclusive to that. We're not.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it was Matt Taylor, one of the founders of UpLaunch, who invited me in.
Oh, right.
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 And I was like, oh yeah. Like, and as soon as I got in, like, cool. And that's what, like, I see people like asking, commenting, and I'm like, oh man, I just like having these conversations are, I mean, I wish that I had learned some of this stuff, right? And if there's literally a little bit of something I've learned in my life that can help someone else, and I'm like, it's just going to make the world a better place. So
That's the idea. That's the vision, right? Like, that's the vision for the podcast, at least, is just, and the mission is to just get it out, get the message out there, let fathers from different areas in life, different experiences, help others learn from their own. And so
yeah.
it's really cool. And the reason I reached out to you is because you are involved in the group. You are out there pushing some really great ideas and responding and being supportive. And I'm like, ding, 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 next winner. Guess what? You won a guest spot on the podcast. And
I thought there was going to be a chicken dinner.
well, you can make chicken dinner. I heard you cook.
I can.
Yeah, there
I
we
do.
go. So yeah, so I'm super pumped to have you. It's guys like you who are putting in a little bit of work here and there, really lifting others up, speaking into their lives with your own experience. That's what makes this group tick. And and it's the stories of these types of people that I want to tell, I want to hear. And so man, Marine Corps helicopter door gunner.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, because you're in the door and you're holding probably a machine gun of some sort.
Yep. Big 50 cal machine gun.
Oh, a big one.
So yeah, big one. So this is like, there's some things that you'll learn in your life that you never unforget or you'll never unlearn, right? Like, so I flew in a CH-53 Echo helicopter in the Marine Corps. It's the fastest, largest, strongest, biggest helicopter in the U.S. military. And that was pretty much how they sold me on it. They were like, everybody sitting around like, who wants to fly in this? Who wants to fly in this? And they're like, this is a CH-53 Echo. It's the fastest, biggest, strongest, most kick-ass. Oh, I don't know if we can swear that. Helicopter there is. And I was like, yeah, I'll take that. Let's go. But so I flew around in that. I signed up in 2004, right after, kind of the initial invasion and push and all that stuff. And decided I wasn't really happy with where my life was going. I had made some wrong turns. I was in college, but not really in college. Like, I was at school, but not in school. Or the other way around. I don't know how that goes, but
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So I joined. It was super funny. I came home. My mom had always told me, she's like, you got to join the military. You got to get some discipline, like this and that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I used to tell people, like, oh, I have a hard time listening to other people tell me what to do. And it's all bull. And I just came home and I was like, hey, I joined the military. She was like, awesome. Did you join the Air Force? I was like, no. Why would I join the Air Force? She's like, did you join like the Army? I was like, no. She's like, the Navy? I was like, no. I was like, I joined the Marine Corps. And she's like, what are you going to do something stupid like that for? Fast forward a couple of years, my mom is one of the, she's, military mom's super proud, Marine Corps mom's even more proud. And, I picked the Marine Corps because I don't believe in an easy life. I believe that there are things that can make our life easier, but I believe that without adversity, without challenges that we overcome, those are the things that help shape who we are. And the people in my experience who have led that easy life with zero adversity and zero challenges that they've ever had to come, they don't have depth in there as a person. So I believe in adversity, and that happens in everything from how I manage my employees to how I, father my children, um, because those are the things that help shape us. So I had told my mom, I was like, if I was going to join any branch of the service, like I'm going to pick the Marine Corps. And anybody who's listening to this, I will fight you in a one-armed thumb war right now. That the Marine Corps is the best, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm sorry. So
We have them in all areas, so you probably got some thumb.
we do, and
yep.
yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I appreciate everybody who serves, like there's no doubt about that. Like I will stand behind someone who is in the Coast Guard or the, anybody who's done some type of service, like I will always stand behind them. But when we're in a room of Marines and Army and sailors and airmen, the Marines win. So but yeah, I did that. I did a bunch of deployments. I was in Iraq a couple times, Afghanistan a couple times. I was on the boat, just got to see, super cool. Got to see a bunch of the world. I think I've been over to like something like 35 something different countries.
Wow.
And like, so it's super fun, right? But at the same time, like there was definitely some adversity, things that were overcome and stuff like that. And so that was all like great. I came back from that, and that's when I was, I was telling Scott, I knew my time was coming to an end in the military. I'd done 10 years. I was tired. I was, for lack of a better term, I was worn out. I had been leaned on very heavy for, like, there were times that like I showed up to my unit and they're like, don't unpack, we're leaving. I was like, okay, cool. Deployed, came back and they're like, don't unpack, we're leaving in 4 months. I was like, oh, okay. Didn't unpack, came back and they're like, hey guys, I know that it's been real rough, but we're actually going to leave again in 6 months. And I'm like, okay. So my first 4 years of the Marine Corps, I had spent more time deployed than I did in the States as a Marine. So I was worn out. I was tired. And I decided, I was like, I don't know, I'm going to either open a motorcycle shop or a gym. And I met my wife at a CrossFit gym. We also knew each other from Plenty of Fish, but I didn't comment or like send her a message because I thought that was creepy. Right. I don't want to be like the gym creep who was like, oh, I seen you like work out. And
Right.
I'm going to be like, hey, I don't know if they had Netflix and chill then, but
Right.
they, I don't think that was a term then.
I don't think so.
But yeah, we started dating, and then she was like, hey, you should open a gym. I think it'd be super cool. And got into fitness, really got into building and trying to do that. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it at this, like it's one of those things, like at the same time, like my favorite photos of me and my son when he was young is literally my son sitting in a bouncer, a car seat, a layback thing next to me as I'm laying gym mats. Right. We did a time lapse of like when we laid the gym out, and it was like laid 4 mats, checked on the baby, laid 4 mats, check on the baby, laid 4 mats, fed the baby, laid 4 mats, changed the baby. And
if you haven't, just for the listeners, if you haven't moved gym floor mats, which usually are horse stall mats,
yeah,
it's a rite of passage. You need to break a few knuckles. You need to slice a finger open, trying to size them. And then you need to try and basically move a flat, wet noodle that weighs over 100 pounds. That's what that's.
Yep. Yeah. Well, have you ever used the gym mat movers?
Well, no, I used vice grips.
Oh, okay. Vice grips. That's better.
Yeah.
So any gym owners out there, if you have horse stall mats, if you haven't checked these things out, they're called mat movers. You can buy them at Tractor Supply. You can order them on Amazon. They're like $20 a piece. My gym, now we have a larger gym. It's something around like 8,000 square feet. We have over 450 floor mats in the facility. Yeah. We have 6 sets of these things, right? Because if we're going to move floor mat, especially right now, our gym's in California, so it's inside, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside. Can't work out, work out. So our mats have moved a whole bunch,
Yeah.
but yeah, you gotta get some mat movers. Literally I'm just best investment I've ever made in our gym.
Yeah, that's a solid being from that background, having gone through it. I use horse stall mats in my garage. It's wall to wall, end to end horse stall mats. Even that project was a massive workout, and you have to
Oh
have
yeah.
something with leverage. And I just saw those about a week ago pop up. Someone was talking about them in one of the affiliate groups. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so smart. But we're not gym owners aren't the precipice of that. I think it came from
Well,
probably
yeah.
a barn, barn supply
Yeah.
stores.
Yeah. It was probably somebody who like went to go buy some horse stall mats at Tractor Supply or something like that. And then they had them sitting next to the shelf and they're like,
Yeah.
that's what we need. And then they grew,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep. They
gym owners.
marketed it.
Yeah. Gym owners as a whole, we are a funky bunch of people. The, we almost none of us come from a business background. Almost none of us come from a like trainer. Like I went to college for a sports, like I don't have a master's in sports psychology or sports physiology or anything like that, right?
Right.
But that's who opens gyms. We're the guys that like you got to figure stuff out. There's solutions, and you're like, I saw this guy do this once, and like I'm going to try this, try that, try this.
It fits your motto, no easy life. That's for sure.
Yeah, that it.
Yeah.
My wife would 100% agree with you that it fits the motto of no easy life.
Yeah. And
They
she was the one prodding you on in the early times, in the early
Oh
days.
yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
even like through COVID, even as time has gone on, like before we moved to Tennessee, I was like sitting there and like we've been closed for like 4 months, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I think this just might be the end. And that was when equipment was super scarce,
Yep.
and we have because I have a purchasing problem. I had a plethora of equipment. I literally looked at it, I was like, I've got 115 grand in equipment right now at like current value. I could offload this on the market, easily pay off, anything that we have. I can give a nice little chunk to my managers and be like, cool. And I can have this little nest egg and I can go buy a tractor and build a barn or whatever, right? And those big farm things. And I was like, and my wife's like, no, I think we should just stick with it. And I was like, all right. And here we are like 6 months later. And I'm like, just stick with it, huh? That was your idea.
Yeah, well, you moved to Tennessee, which I just finished a podcast before I hopped on this one from a guy from California, and he's like, "Yeah, I think we're moving to Tennessee." He's got a farm in California. He's got beautiful acreage, but he's like, "Can you imagine how much acreage I could have in Tennessee?"
Yeah.
And then I know Eric Leclaire, who lives in
Hmm.
California, is moving to I think he's
He's working on it.
90% there. Uh,
Yeah.
Chatted with them yesterday. And then I've been talking to my wife for some time. Like, it's beautiful. They have mountains like we grew up around in Oregon. Um, Man, Tennessee looks pretty sweet right now. So,
Listen, like there's no sales tax or there's no income tax,
right.
right?
Yep.
You can get wonderful property right now. I mean, we we bought a 22-acre plot um just south of Athens, or just south of Athens. So we're between Knoxville and Chattanooga. We didn't move to Nashville, or we
Right.
weren't looking for San Diego in Tennessee. We were looking for Tennessee,
Yeah. Right.
right? And what we bought, we got a 4-bed, 4-bath house, 22 acres. I have a detached 2-car garage and a 6-car under the house garage, like basement. So it's giant.
Home gym.
Home gyms is a detached garage. My
Oh,
wife,
wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So that was actually built before any of our boxes were unloaded. So
Yeah. I get it.
yeah, they but we were able to buy that for less than a 2-bedroom condo in San Diego was going to cost us.
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. 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 There has been a lot of movement happening. I live in Texas, and that's why people used to always come here. And now the
Hmm.
prices of the houses are up, and the culture, like where I've lived, has changed dramatically because people are moving here. It's a really
Yep.
interesting thing. So you still have the gym active
Mhm.
in San
Yep.
Diego,
Yep.
and you are living in Tennessee. Your wife is working full time, and you shared with me beforehand that she works on Australia time right now.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
So yeah. So that's my wife's. She works. She's a director at a software company, and the big account that they're working on right now is in Queensland, Australia. So we actually lived in Queensland, Australia. We lived in Brisbane for 9 months
Fun.
while I owned a gym, and that was what really was the test for me. I was like, well, hey, if I can own my gym and move to a different country for 9 months, then I can own my gym and live in a different state,
Yep.
right? And I didn't know that's what I was testing for, but it wasn't easy, so let's try it. Um, we were, but so my wife works Australian hours, so she doesn't start work until like noon, and then we'll finish between 10 midnight 1 2 o'clock in the morning. Like if they do these long trainings where she'll be on the phone with Australia, with Brisbane. She'll get home at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. So that leverages a lot of the responsibilities with the taking care of our kids and stuff like that, um, on me. And it's not a matter of, and it's like my wife tries to get in this, like it's got to be equal, but it's not. And it's okay that it's not. I own a gym and I work at Up Launch, which is a gym software company, right?
Mhm.
um it's a good job. I love the people that I work with. I like what I do. I get to talk to gym owners all the time and help them solve problems, but I'm not going to buy a brand new G class or whatever like that. Like,
Right.
my wife, on the other hand, who has a master's degree, who is a director at a software fund, like she works on like $20 million projects. My wife's the primary breadwinner. So I'm like, okay, if you have to work late, like you have to work late. Like it's not a big deal.
Right. Right.
I'm
Well,
not upset. Good.
if you've been tuned into the page, the group long enough, you know
Yeah.
that I am not a believer in 50-50 marriages.
No.
They are a fallacy, and they're a setup to lose. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm in like each person, and it should be giving 100%, and that 100% is going to totally look different, depend on the cycle of
Mhm.
your life. And guess what? You're not responsible for your spouse's percentage. like
Nope. Yeah.
we all go through our things. We all have changes that we make. We all grow. We all have work or new ventures. And so what I'm hearing from you is um, you're putting in 100%. You got two little kids. You got
Yeah.
a daughter that's 3 and a son that's 5, and a
Yes.
wife that sometimes isn't getting home till midnight. So or beyond. How's that been?
It's been rough. I'm not gonna like there. So not only does she work Australian hours, she does before COVID. She traveled to Australia quite a bit. So we were talking about this the other day. There was one block where she was actually gone for 6 weeks. So for 6 weeks, I was every morning, and this is really funny. When my sister, I have a sister, she was married to my best friend from back in the day. He was in the Marine Corps. He deployed, and I would go see her. She lived in California, and I would see her. She had 2 kids, and I'd be like, "How's it going?" She's like, "I haven't showered, and I don't even remember the last time I took a shower." And I was like, "How do you not remember the last time you took a shower?" Now I was a single, no children, guy at the time who was like, "Yeah, I want to buy a new motorcycle." So I went and bought a new motorcycle. I called my sister after 3 weeks and I was like, "I understand where you were coming from." I was like, "I don't remember the last time I took a shower because it's literally from 5:30 in the morning when everybody gets up and we have to start moving to 9 o'clock at night. And then I sit on the couch and I fall asleep."
Right.
Yeah. So it's not easy, but at the same time, like I wouldn't want it any other way. And I get to look at like some of the things that are super important to me. Like I I came from more of like I grew up in like my parents split when I was younger. I had a great relationship with my father. I have an amazing relationship with my mother. I learned a lot from my dad. I learned more from my mom. But I I know that everything, like our kids are sponges, and everything that they learn right now is what is like molding them for the future, right? And my goal is like if my son and daughter aren't the next Genghis Khan, then like what did I do? I did something wrong. Like they should be ready to take over the world at any given moment. Like they have been molded for that. Maybe not necessarily Genghis Khan, but you know what like
The idea makes sense.
the
Yes.
idea.
Yeah, conquered.
So yeah, to conquer. And you know, like we have these little things that, and it's funny from anybody who's in the military, like I use ditties in our house all the time. So like my son will be like he was 4 years old, and I was like, cool. He memorized my number, my wife's number. Like he remembered these things. We use ditties for that. But at the same time, we would race to like from the staircase to the truck, and I would half and half. I'd let him win. I'd win. I want him to understand the joy of being first and trying real hard and winning. At the same time, I don't want him to believe that like he always have to try. So we have a saying that Tim's never quit, right? And Tim's keep driving. So like that's a family motto.
That's awesome. I love that you have family mottos. And I think we same thing. I had this conversation in the last podcast. Failure is a good thing. Experiencing failure
Yes.
is an incredibly important thing. And building it in. I've never heard someone talk about like really strategically. I have, but strategically winning some and strategically losing some. And the thing is also when we lose, make no excuses. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're tired today or whatever. No, it's like,
No.
yeah, you suck today. Sorry, bud.
Yeah. You gotta try harder, bud. You want to beat me? You gotta try harder.
Yeah. And I love the never
Yeah.
give up. The never give up. One something that we've done, and I'm sure you'll do. Hearing you talk, I'm sure you'll do when your kids get into sports. Is like if you decide to go out for that basketball team, that football team, whatever it is, and you get into it and you hate it, you signed up for the season, bud.
Hmm.
And you're going to give it your all for that season. When it's done, you can make a
Yep.
decision if you're moving forward or not. But you made a commitment and we're going to stick to it.
Yep. You said you were gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some of the greatest lessons come from that. So a lot of hours, how do you maintain your connectedness or your being in the moment with your kids when I'm sure when your wife texts or calls or whatever, you attend to that, and then you have
Hmm.
business, that things that you have to attend to, and I know how easy it is to get distracted and lose touch.
Hmm. Yeah. I think there's different things that I do. And it's how everybody fathers and parents is different. I believe in roughhousing, so like I try to at least 4 times a week lay on the floor and literally wrestle, like tickle wrestle, like with my kids. So like I will say like, all right, cool, like we're waiting, we'll start dinner in 30 minutes, but for the next 30 minutes we're gonna just play right here. Even small things like giving my kids chores is part of, and how the way I explain it to them is like you're part of our family and you want our family to be successful, so you are going to help. My son feeds the dog. Anytime we have cardboard, it goes on the back porch, and then he puts it in the burn pile. He drags it across the yard into the burn pile. My daughter helps sweep. Like we come up with chores. We make our beds. We do all these little things, and I try to find little things to do with each of them. Like I take my son to the movies sometimes. Like we went and watched Wonder Woman 84, and I felt bad that I took him to such a terrible movie
Hey,
to go
I'm
see.
sorry.
Yeah, it was. I literally told somebody, I was like, I would rather watch the Green Lantern on repeat for 24 hours than watch Wonder Woman 84 again, because it was so
I
bad.
heard that. I didn't watch it. I
It
heard.
was bad. Don't. But so we do that. We're at a really interesting age now where like, so my wife is from California, and I say that with love, but my wife is from California. We had a very in-depth conversation about firearms in the house and what does hunting look like and stuff like that. And she was like, I don't think it's safe. And I was like, well, that's because that was, I believe that's how you were brought up on this. I was brought up hunting. And I was like, all right. And we had this very long conversation about like, this is going to be something I'm going to do with both my children. I'm going to take them out. We're going to talk about not just hunting and guns, but the life cycle, how nature works, like why, you know, the respect of an animal that we have hunted, killed, and processed and eating. That process, like that is a life cycle. All those little things are things that like we're going to go over. And my wife was like, I don't like the idea of like them being around guns. I'm like, I totally get that. There's more to it than that, you know. So, but we have conversations about it, and we decided like we were going to wait a while till we started. And I was like, that's fine. Um, but just trying to find little things, like I don't know, my kid's got this little thing where you like flip a dog's tail and like it's like tic-tac-toe and connect four with a catapult, right? All his name's like Tony or something. And like we laid on the floor the other day and I totally felt bad because we laid on the floor and we played just back to back to back, just going back to back to back. And I looked up and we have an 8 o'clock bedtime and it was like 9:15. And I was like, oh, we have to go to bed, guys. And
That's an incredible problem to run into unexpectedly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
wanna
was
but
good.
I want well, I wanna jump back to the roughhousing. Um, Research shows how incredibly powerful that is. With boys and girls, there's a confidence thing, there's a
Yep.
body awareness thing, there is understanding that, uh, physical touch isn't necessarily only harmful or only sexual. Like
Hmm.
believe it or not, there's an in between.
Yep.
And I remember growing up, my dad, that was like what's the best part of the day. Come home and
Yep.
he's like, for the hour, as soon as I get home, all we're doing is playing. And usually that meant like we called it Indian wrestling, which is probably an offense to
Mhm.
somebody, but the legs together and
Yeah.
we would do that kind of stuff and wrestle and slam each other with pillows and make people sandwiches and all
Hmm.
sorts of great things. And I think we've lost that. I
Hmm.
think a lot of folks have lost that. And my son was going through a class and they were talking about the difference between being male and being a man. And I was like, that they got not every male is a man. And
I.
they definitely find these things and I'm like, wow, you've got to do that kind of stuff with your son
Hmm.
and with your daughters,
Yeah.
uh, because that prepares them for life. It prepares your daughters to raise boys in the right way
Hmm.
and know how to interact with men in the right way. And it raises your sons. I mean, it's in our DNA. It's part of our hormones. And
Hmm.
it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
No,
Love
yeah. I think I am 100% with you. I used to the same. My mom would tell me, she's like, you would wrestle with your father until you cried. She's like, and then it was like, okay, cool, that was enough. She's like, but there were times like he would come in and be like, all right, like it's enough. And she's like, because your dad was a little older and he's sweating and his hair is all messed up. And she's like, but those were like I remember all that,
Yeah.
right? And I agree. It teaches you to like if you like you fall down like and this happens like my daughter's 3 years old. She falls down and she starts crying and she's like, oh, and I'm like, okay, get up, shake it off.
Yeah.
And this is like a common thing that we do. Like
Resilience.
get up, shake. Yeah, you gotta have this resilience. I joke with my wife, I was like, Tims are durable. We're durable people. So we have to sometimes build in that durability. Uh I think that the rough housing and being physical and all that, and then at the same time going outside and being physical, running around, stuff like that. That was a big negative for me in California. Was even if I had $1 million, the best thing I could do was buy a half-acre yard that I had to be outside with my children because there's so many people, and like I think that the percentage of crazy people and good people is the same everywhere, but when you have 500,000 people, there's more crazies,
Yeah.
right?
Just
And it's just the math. But we couldn't do that with our family outside. Here, my kids get to wake up on a Saturday. They put their muck boots on and their jackets, and they go outside. And the rule is, as long as you can see the house, you're fine.
I think back on that. That's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think back on
Yeah.
that when I grew up, because my wife, eh, she she loves my boys. I mean, our boys.
Mhm.
She's the most incredible mother, but sometimes she's like, "Ah, just that makes me nervous." And I remember growing up and we had huge farm ranch properties behind us. This is in Oregon, more with farm properties. And it was just acres and acres and acres, and it'd go into the woods, and there was
Yeah.
creeks with raging water, and there was mountains. And I would literally leave, and in 8 hours, I would leave with a BB gun on my back, a backpack full of stupid stuff, and 8 hours, come home, drenched to the, to just completely soaked. And it was normal.
Yep.
My mom wasn't freaked out. She's like, "Oh, did you have a good time?" I'm like, "Yeah, I killed a bird," you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, um, and so I think back on those times, I'm like, that was building resilience. That was building a sense of
Yep.
adventure. That was building independence. I love the house in sight. I love that you're in a place that you get to do that.
Yeah.
It's a really great opportunity you've given your kids.
Yeah. It's been fun. My wife is very similar. I think she gets super, worried. She literally comes over to me and she's like, "What do you think of these?" And on Amazon, she's showing me child Apple Watch GPSs.
So you can locate them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I looked at her and I was like, "Listen," I was like, "if you want to buy those because that will make you feel better, I understand that. I think it's a bad investment. I don't think it's worth the $70 for the two of them." I was like, "They're not going to wear them. They're going to die. They're going to like are the kids are going to break them, or where we live, you might not get service."
More than likely.
So, like I feel bad because sometimes we'll be on a phone conversation and it just goes away and you're like, "Oh, okay." At the same time, I love that.
Yeah.
Our kids play outside now. They don't watch TV, you know.
Well,
It's
TV, here's another thing. I want to talk about this because I think a lot of men need to hear this. In fact, it came up in the group, entertaining my kids. Um, hey, don't. Like
yeah.
guess what happens when you relieve them of all of those things? Take the TV away, take the games away, take the
Yeah.
phone away and say, "Hey, have
Figure it
fun."
out.
And
Yep.
before you know it, that creative mind starts to work. Uh, it's a muscle that has to be built, and it's a muscle that has to be, it's just like keeping your body in shape. It's just like staying strong. It's
Yep.
got to
I
be
mean,
practice.
that's literally like so I'm re-going through Rich Dad Poor Dad
Okay.
right now.
Yep. Yep.
And that's like the first thing that he talks about is like my, rich dad said, like, it's a muscle and I have to use it every day. It's it's and I agree. My wife will she will I and I know my wife, she might hear this, and I love you to death, but my wife, because she has guilt, she's a mom, she has guilt about not being around the kids as much, about working late, about traveling and all this. And she feels bad. So she sometimes will try to use gifts as a way to, and I call it like she tries to buy love. Right. So she orders presents and gifts and stuff off Amazon. She's like, "Hey, mommy, bought you this stuff." And I'm like, "Cool." I wouldn't have done that. First off, they're gonna break that in 10 minutes. And like I'm glad, like, or you bought the fire truck that just like as it sits in the toy box just randomly starts going off.
Yeah.
It gives me the
Small.
yeah. I was like at the same time, like just give them, like my son walks around right now with a stick and it's his walking stick. And I'm like, all right, I don't know where you figured out you needed a walking stick, but I'm glad you got a walking stick. And he like it sits on our back porch.
Mhm.
It's his walking stick. He like we had to talk like you can't bring your walking stick to school. Like you can't send your kid to school with this giant stick. It's just a rule, I guess. But
Crazy rule.
those are the things like not having TV for education. Like I don't think that TV can be bad. Like I
Right.
think it's fine to have a relaxing, like, hey, we're gonna relax, we're gonna chill out. Um, and I think that those stories, I watched movies as a kid, and I think that there's a lot of cool lessons that we can learn and emotions that we can tap into momentarily through stories, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But it shouldn't be like it shouldn't be an 8-hour marathon of Peppa Pig.
Right.
At the same time, like when we lived in California, we lived in like I said, we lived in a 900 square foot third story apartment. It was literally our apartment parking lot and a 7-lane highway.
That's
There was like, if we were going to take my kids to a playground, it was a 3-hour ordeal because we had to get ready, we had to get in the car, we had to drive to a playground. All right, cool, we're here, we can play. Then we had to come back, and all, like, it just wasn't that type of freedom wasn't a thing there. And like the day, and it's silly, but like my daughter came in and she had grass everywhere in her hair because they were rolling down a hill. And I was like, and I had to stop myself because I was like, I'm not mad. Like, I'm upset that we have to do the bath again right now, right? And then I'm gonna have to sit here with the comb and try and get all this out. At the same time, like, I'm really glad that like you guys just spent an hour rolling down a hill.
yeah. It hurts. You get adrenaline.
Yeah,
It's fun, you
yeah,
get dirty, and your imagination is going wild. Like the things that you're thinking as you're running back up the hill or as you're going down, So I think that creative, that outdoor, uninhibited play is so incredibly powerful. I think it's something that's been, we're seeing the ill effects of not enough of it right now.
yeah. Yep.
And uh, yeah, it's the beauty of that stick, the walking stick.
Hmm.
When he's out there, I'm sure if it hasn't happened, it's gonna turn into a gun.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's gonna be
Yep.
a snake, and it's
Oh
gonna,
yeah.
and so there's just so much growth that can happen through those things. And I think parents are afraid to turn off the TV because it's
Mhm.
free entertainment, but it's not. I
Yep.
think the pay that it's free babysitting, but you're going to pay in spades in the future.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Yep.
one thing that came up in the podcast I just shot uh, with Ian was, and it's a motto. It's part of our values for the Brotherhood of Fatherhood. Is he said, "Hey, look, I'm not here to raise kids. I'm here to raise the future men and women." Uh,
Yep.
and how do you feel about that statement?
I I 100% agree. Like, so when we found out we were pregnant, my wife and I had only been dating for 6 months. She actually didn't want children. I had been waiting my whole life to be a father. And I was like, okay, like, well, and we went through all that. We had our son Lincoln, super excited. And she was like, I'm just not sure about this. I was like, listen, we have one goal. It's to make sure that our children are productive members of society and they're not a bunch of assholes.
Yep.
I was like, that's our goal. I was like, because they're going to be the ones that are, going forward. I was like, every single thing that we do now is magnified and multiplied into what people see them as in the future. And it's all the little things that we don't think about, how how me and my wife communicate. We do not. I can I don't want to say do not. Emotions are emotions. I think in the last 6 years, my wife and I have raised our voice to each other 3 times total. And then it was an instant, the voice went up, stop. Let's have a conversation. If we need a moment, we'll take a moment. Let's have this conversation though. Um, we show affection. You know,
Yes.
I I am a man and I am attracted to my wife and I show affection.
I
Um,
I want to pause.
yeah.
Hold that thought. Pause. Okay, so on both of those, I tell my boys all the time. I'm like, if you want to be successful in life, follow your dad's footsteps and hire someone you see as totally hot for who she is. I am in love with your mom. I'll grab her butt in front of them. I'll hug her in front of them. I'll kiss and make out with her in front of them. I don't care if they get all frustrated. I'm like, dude, just wait. You're going to love it when you have the same thing. But then if we have an argument, now what we've done is we will have it in front of the kids, but then it's like, just like you, it's like, woo, we need to pull this down.
Yep.
If they catch a glimpse of it, we use that as an opportunity. And I really actually think they should see that because it's
Yeah.
impossible not to. But then
Yep.
one of us, and it's magic how it's always we just kind of rotate through this. We'll go back and talk to them. Hey, we are humans. We are individuals who came together and married each other. We're going to see things differently sometimes, but that does
Hmm.
not affect our love for each other. We operate great within these confines, and this is how we deal with it. And we're setting them up so that when they're married, they know it's okay to fight. Guess what? It's not happily ever after.
Yeah,
It's one day at a
it's
time.
work. Yep.
Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to roll back a little bit and say, yes, your wife, like we are men. Do what
Yeah.
men do.
I like I 100%. And like I get it, like some people aren't comfortable with that. I think that it's something that you should open yourself up to be comfortable with. Like there's no doubt in any of my children's, my family's, my friends, anyone who just sees us, like that I love my wife. Like I chase her constantly, right? But I think it's okay to, and like we have these conversations too. Like it's okay that daddy walks by and smacks mommy's butt. It's not okay that Lincoln does it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because yep, you got to kind of set, and this is the rules. And then it gave a great opportunity for me to talk to my son about like, it's not okay to do it unless you're asked to do it,
There you go.
right?
Yeah.
And Lincoln was like, well, how do I know if well, what are they going to ask me? You'll know when you know if they say it's okay.
Yep.
And that'll be, and like, this is the other thing I look at is like, we don't have to teach every lesson at this age or right now or anything like that, but we can start setting foundations for other lessons coming forward. Right. And that'll get into like later on as me and my son talk about the big lessons of, how we talk about, small stuff. Like I was raised like, you don't hit women. That was just like my dad had very simple rules, and you don't hit women is one of them. And at my son's age of 5 and my daughter 3, like they wrestle and all that. I was like, cool. Every time I say, I was like, you don't hit women. And he's like, but she hit me. I was like, I totally get that. Doesn't matter. It's a non-negotiable. That's the rule. And one day I will have the conversation and be like, listen, if the 6'7", 320-pound roller derby woman comes over to you and starts bashing your head into a bar, defend yourself,
Right.
because I'm not going to let you live that down.
Right.
Right. But at the same time,
It's not time for that conversation.
it's not time for that conversation.
Yeah. 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 Those things, a lot of parents will decide that they're protecting their kids from things they don't need to see. But what they're doing is instead of them teaching and giving the opportunity to talk it through and understand, they're letting the world, media,
Yep.
movies, things that are not real. I mean, it's just not real. It's not how life works.
Hmm.
And the wife thing, I think we have a lot in common here. My wife she always told me from the beginning, I'm going to be a professional woman. She's a physical doctor in physical therapy,
Yep.
loved working, eventually made the decision like, wow, it's really cool being home with the kids. But that came on her timing, and it was
Hmm.
her, and I was totally supportive of her balancing. Man, that
Yep.
balance. You talked a little bit about it, like, your wife wants, the gun thing. What I've done is it's similar. What I've done is just slow exposure and
Yep.
and have conversations with her beforehand. And this is how I'm going to keep them safe, and this is what we're going to do.
Yep.
And how has that balance been for you? Because I'm living the same thing. A woman who loves her kids so deeply that sometimes there's protection that actually is more probably harmful than helpful. How do you manage that?
We, it, it's always a conversation, right? And I start with like, here's what I think, right? She explains her side of things, and I say, all right, well, like, and I'll ask, like, what do you think about what I think, right? And she'll poke some holes, and I'll be like, all right, well, here's what I think about what you think. I'll poke some holes, and we try to find a common ground. I'm never, and this is like something that I talk about. Like I've told some people, like I never try to change my wife's mind. I try to show her my side of things. That's all I'm trying to do is just try to help her see things through my eyes,
Mhm.
right? And if she changes her mind, great. If she doesn't, then that's fine. Like we will, and I want to see things through her eyes too. Snacks are a big thing. We talk, I mentioned this. My wife has this mothering instinct to feed her babies. And my daughter will be like, one day she'll eat, 3 bowls of Oreos and 3 scrambled eggs and 2 strips of bacon. And the next day be like, no. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you don't want to eat that, you can get down. But you're not going to get a snack for the next till lunchtime. And an hour later, she'll be like, I'm hungry. And my wife will be like, oh, and she'll like, oh, here, give a snack. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. Like, because now you're teaching, that leads to these bad behaviors. Right. Um, and it's always a conversation, and there are some things that we go, back and forth on. Like I said, like I was excited I wanted to go out and get a BB gun and get a 22 so I could like start showing my son this stuff and like all this. And she's like, let's just slow down a little bit. I was like, okay. And she brought up some super valid points. We just moved. When we lived in California, besides the fact that it's really hard to own a firearm in California, we lived on a 3rd-story apartment. I was not going to bring a gun safe up to the 3rd-story apartment. We are waiting on a safe to be delivered. Yeah. So right now our firearms are they're locked in a top shelf. And my wife said, like, listen, I don't want to start showing them these things until we have a very safe, secure way to lock them up. And I was like, that 100% makes sense to me. 100%.
Communication and listening for understanding, not just listening for whatever. I think, man, what great advice. And I think my wife will sometimes do these extra protective things, but we're a little different. And I'm like the little more of the softy on like, the line. She's this black and white, like, boom, no, no, you will not eat anything. So, but it's coming together and understanding, also explaining to your kids, and then consistency.
Yeah.
But that communication, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think, consistency is a huge part of that too. And that's, even if my wife, and this happens, like if I might say, no, you're not going to get ice cream because you didn't eat your dinner. And then my son would be, mom said I could have ice cream. And then I'll look and I'll be like, she'll be like, I did say that. Like, all right, you can have ice cream. And then we'll have a conversation like, why did you give him ice cream? Like I said, and she's like, I didn't hear you say that. I was like, okay, it was just, not a big
all the time.
Here's why, right? But we're never going to overstep the other one.
Respect.
Respect. The only caveat to that is safety. There are tons of times where I don't know anything about horses, and I don't plan on knowing anything about horses, but we're going to get some horses, and that'll be my wife's thing, because I don't care about horses. I think they're shifty. But if I was in the wrong spot of a horse and my wife was like, you got to move, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Right.
But when we're out in the public, I have a very unique set of skills. No, I have just a higher awareness of those things because I've trained myself into that. Yeah. And so if I like ever say like, hey, move, my wife's just like, okay. So safety.
Curious how you feel about being the protector and the leader of the home, coming from a household of a working wife like I am. She's not now, but mindset.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about those two things?
That's a really good question. I don't think I've actually ever thought about how I feel about those. There's never been a doubt in my mind about the protector, right? I tell, like, my wife can, she works out, she weight lifts, all that. My wife is, she can take care of herself. At the same time, like, I don't ever want her to be in that situation.
Right.
So I don't know. That's a really good question. Like, I might have to think on that more. Like, I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about it. Like, I am, like, mine and my wife's job is to protect our family.
Yeah.
My job is to protect my wife and my family. And that's my number one. Like, because like I tell my wife, if anything ever happened to her, like I would punch her. And she was like, "What if I like died?" I was like, "I would punch you because I'd be pissed." But he, like, I have to keep her around because I need her in my life. But at the same time, of like being the person who is like the more in tune with like we're getting lunches and we're eating in baths and stuff like that. I Yeah, I don't know. I think it does allow me to have. I am more of the black and white.
Mm-hmm.
These are the rules, and this is how we do things. And like my wife will send me a text. She's like, "How was it?" I was like, "We were having a really good day. Everybody ate their dinner. We had ice cream. Nora put half a bottle of shampoo in her head. Took me 15 minutes to wash it all out. Right." And I don't know if you guys are having any more kids. A daughter is a unique challenge in so many just ways that I just never thought about.
Yeah, I'm a boy dad.
Yeah.
We're done. So
Yeah. Yeah. They just how long shampoo will stay in somebody's hair. Like obviously I
right.
am not a worry, right? So
Me neither.
yeah. But I was like I was like, I don't understand. Like I just kept pouring water on and there's just more
Science does
bubbles.
not compute. The
Yeah.
formula
I
is not right.
just didn't get it. They but it's so I wanted to tell this story, and this is something that goes along with that, being the protector and the person who's home. So uh, I had 5 days ago, I had the most chilling and scary moment of my entire life. I lost my kids. And it was that same, like everything you see in the movie was a split second. They were there, they weren't. And basically, my wife she was going to the grocery store. I think it might have been Sunday or something like that. She was just going to go to the grocery store, pick a couple things up real quick. And I was like, okay. And as she left, she sent me a text message. Hey, will you just check on the kids? They were outside. They were walking down the driveway. Now we have a 500-meter long driveway. The downside it's great. We're super far off the road, but it's 250 meters. And then there's a tree line that our driveway goes through. And then you're at the main road, another 250 meters. So I was like, yeah. So I stuck my head out. I saw the kids. I was like, hey, no, back up here. And they said, okay. And they turned, came back up there. My mom called me. We were just having a conversation. Like, all right, cool. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I walked back outside and I walked down the front porch and I didn't see him. And I screamed. I always call my son because he's the louder one. So I call for my son Lincoln and I don't hear a response. So I was all right. So I go through the house, I go to the back porch, same thing. Now, I'm not a small person. I was in the military. I have a booming voice. When I want to be loud, it's loud. And I started to raise my volume. Like I can hear it echoing off the hills in the distance and no response. And I'm like, all right. Now at this point, I like called my son's name like 4 or 5 times. I tell my mom, I was like, hey, let me call you back. I was like, I can't find Lincoln right now. And she was like, okay, cool. Just let me know. I was like, all right, hang up the phone. Not worried. Now I'm starting to get angry because they're not responding. I walk outside. Now I walk off the porch. I go outside. I scream their name, scream my son's name a few more times. No, I can't. I scream, wait, no, nothing. I go to the front yard, scream, wait, no. I look at my dog. Where are the kids? Right? He just looks at me. So now I'm like, all right. I start walking down because the way our property is set up, our house is literally in the middle, but there's fields that go off, right? And tree lines. So I start walking down to one corner of the field where you can't quite see. And I'm screaming his name and I don't hear anything. Like, all right. Now I'm starting to get like, now I'm angry,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
I walk back up to the house. Now my son knows my phone number. Like you can just ask him, hey, what's your daddy's phone number? And he can just diddy it off, right? So I was like, well, you know what? Maybe he walked down the driveway and we like Glenda Wilson, who's our neighbor in the front, older, 87 years. I was like, maybe she saw him or something. So I grabbed my phone. All right, cool. I'm still walking around. Now I'm getting tired because I've gone up and down the driveway a little bit. So I jump in my truck and now I am driving my truck around the property. I am bombing through fields, down the driveway. I'm screaming their names. Now I'm panicking. Now I'm not mad. Now I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm driving around, and now we're at the 22-minute mark of from when I realized that they were missing.
Ooh, that's a long time.
I have screamed their names 100 times. I am literally like my fields are messed up right now because I was like in my F-150, lifted F-150, like bombing down.
Yeah.
I call my wife because now I've made the decision that this has been too long. Something's wrong. I have to call the police. So I call my wife to tell her I'm calling the police. Right. I need to make sure that she doesn't just like show up and there's all this. I tell her I can't find the kids. I've been calling their names. She's like, okay, I'm on my way home. I was like, all right. She said, what are you gonna do? I was like, I'm gonna call the cops. She said, okay. So I call the cops. 911 dispatch. I know exactly what they're wearing. You know, she's like, we've only been in town 3 weeks. Were they gone anywhere? Like, no, they don't know anybody here. Like going through this, and they're like, all right, cool. We've got fire, EMS, DNRs on their way. Like everybody's coming. It's like, all right, we're running around. I'm down in the woods of our house. We have a pond down there. I'm screaming in there. I'm looking in the water. Like I don't see anything. My wife gets home. She comes booming up the driveway. She gets out. I'm on the phone with the 911, and she starts screaming. And she is like, "Have have you looked in the house?" Yes, I've been everywhere. I have torn through my house. I have torn through like everything. I've been everywhere on our property. I can't find them. And I'm on the phone where she's like, okay, now they're calling in like they're getting ready to like call the helicopter or whatever, right?
It's
Because
serious.
we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And like it's making me a little sick to think about this right now. But we my wife goes down the hill and she's calling for him, and then she's like, hang on, did you hear that? I was like, no, and I have bad hearing. I was like, no, I didn't hear anything. And she calls her name again, and she can hear my daughter giggle a little bit. And she and then I hear my daughter. Now I hear my daughter. I come running up this hill, and I see my son and my daughter walking towards me. They're 20 feet away. I literally like drop to a knee. I am crying. I
Oh
am
yeah.
bawling. It's the most terrified I've ever been in my whole life. My wife is crying. She's like, "Where were you?" And they're like, "We were playing hide and seek." They were hiding in this. We just moved, and I have a pile of 150 different cardboard boxes in the carport behind the garage that I'm going to use for our bonfire. And they were hiding underneath that. They heard me the whole time, and they thought it was funny. They thought that they were playing a game. It was, like I said, I've been shot at. I've been hit with RPGs. I've seen friends killed. It's literally the most terrifying moment of my entire existence. I couldn't look at my son for hours. I was so sad, mad, hurt, angry. I didn't know what to do. And we came inside. My wife sat him down and said, like, this is not funny. You really made daddy really sad and really, really scared. And they came over and they apologized. I don't think they understood like what was up. We sent them to their room, and I was like, you just put them in their room. Like, I can't deal with this, like that with them right now. And we like talked about it. My wife like gave me a bunch of hugs because I was so shooken up about it. Um, like having to call your wife even
Yeah.
to like physically call 911 because like, and now like I've questioned everything as I am who is a person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
About being a dad. And we had the conversation. I was like, listen, like it doesn't matter, game or not. When daddy screams your name, you come running. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. And I like me and my son talked about it like 3 times. And the only good thing that has come out of this now is I stick my head out the back porch because I didn't want to change direction as a parent. Right. We had this scary moment. We had to educate and train and teach. I still let my kids go outside by themselves because I don't want that to go away. But I had to work through that process. And I realized as a father, I might not have done, hey, it doesn't matter. Like I told, like we had rules, like if you see, as long as you see the house, all that stuff. And now I stick my head out and I scream Lincoln, and I hear him like, I'm coming right now. And like, and I might not see him for 5 seconds, but I can hear him.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, all right, this is at least good. But my wife wants to get now the GPS watches and because of that, and I'm like, I don't think that's worth it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, like I'm thinking, it's the first thing that came to my mind when you started telling the story. I'm like, they're playing hide and go seek. But it's terrifying. I can't even imagine going 20 minutes. I cannot imagine the rage and fear and love that was
yeah,
overwhelming. Yeah. Uh, and then going to tell all the first responders, "Hey, thanks." They were
yeah.
I'm sure it's not the
We,
first time they'd seen it, so
yeah, yeah. It was, that's exactly what it was. Like rage. That was totally an emotion that I had to grab like right there. And that's like my wife, like, I think she saw it. And like as soon as I saw them and I fell to a knee and just started like crying, like I literally had nowhere else to put this, just this, all this emotion just colliding at once. And the one thing, like, it's the reason I wanted to like share this story is like, obviously, like, not because I don't want people to let their kids go out and play or anything like that, but like, it's it wasn't my children's fault, right? Like, yeah, they should have like, in hindsight, like, I wish they would have like said something when I called them, but like I had never instinctively told them like, when I do this, this and this happens.
right.
But like, everybody makes mistakes. Now, obviously, like I look at it now, and even going back, my wife's like, "Would you have waited longer to call the cops?" I says, "No, because it is only 500 meters down to our road, and
Yeah.
there is a tree line there. Like, if somebody would have grabbed them, like, I want somebody on this right now,
Yeah. Yeah, no
right?"
regrets on that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, most terrifying moment of my entire life.
Well, I think, man, if one person listens to this and has the conversation, here's the rules, but if I'm
Hmm.
ever yelling for you, um, hide and go seek's done. Like, just even
Yeah.
instruction,
Yep.
it's not, we're done. And because they don't know. And I love that you stepped right back out. Okay, you still can go outside because it was an isolated incident and
Hmm.
it can't define how you move forward as a father. But man, what a scary thing. And it made me think of this when you started describing the emotions and the things that you went through thinking they were lost. I can absolutely, without a doubt, understand how it's not murder, but how I would kill somebody if
Oh,
they harm
oh
my
yeah.
kids or my wife.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's so that I and I have had this conversation with my wife. So, um, I am not a Navy SEAL. I am not any of like that. I have gone through an extensive amount of uh, hand-to-hand combat training. Like, I was a martial arts instructor trainer in the Marine Corps, so we use the McMap system, and it's very similar to like Krav Maga, kind of, right? It's just a reaction. Um, and I told her, she was like, she was worried. She's like, what would you be worried about if someone like broke into our house? I was like, well, I would be worried about how emotional you would be when you had to come bail me out. And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Because I wouldn't think twice about it." I was like, "It would literally just be an instinctive reaction." I was like, "And I would probably just like break someone's neck or shoot them or something like that. Like, that would probably just happen." And I was like, I've told her, I was like, "I apologize for that." I was like, "But in my world, it's a fail. It's a 50-50, and this is, I joke about this a lot. Everything in the world is 50-50. It either happens or it doesn't happen." I was like, "That is a threat who either is going to win or fail,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it's a fail."
Yeah, absolutely. I've lived the opposite end of that. I went left one day to pick up my kids. We lived in an old neighborhood in a very big house on the corner. It was really nice. And I saw three people walking. I'm like, they don't belong here. But I was going to get my kids. I came home and came in the house, and my boys come out of my office that's connected, and they're like, "Oh, the realtor's here." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "The guy in the closet." Um, and I just go walking. I have my phone in my hand. I go walking back there, and there's this guy, and he's just looking at me. And he walks by me and pushes me aside, and I like grab my phone, obviously, and I'm calling. And I replay that over and over again. I mean, he went to prison. They found him because he
Yeah.
touched me. He went to prison, but like he had to run downstairs right in front of me. I could have just pushed a little bit and it knocked his clock out. The other two, they're all meth heads. They got away with thousands of dollars of our stuff. When I got home, they were prying on the gun safe. They were prying it open. I mean, they were just like, it wasn't a huge gun safe, and they were just, and I'm like, the timing and the fact that my sons walked in on them and all those things. So the whole message here is you can't be over prepared, and you can't be undertrained, and you can't be unsafe. You have to have all the, like, if I wouldn't have had my handgun in a safe, which I didn't before, that could have ended in a really bad way, or my gun may have been used to murder someone else.
Yep. And then in my opinion, like, that becomes part of like your responsibility. Like, that's something that you have to like deal with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that, it's the only thing I can equate to realizing that this story is so incredibly important, because every man should be thinking right now through the scenarios that could be happening and how they would respond in a logical and effective manner. Kids lost. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Invader in the house. What am I going to do? Someone breaking in while my family's here. What am I going to do? Like, I just, if there's one thing I could do, it would have been, I would have gone back and been trained on how to handle that situation. And because it could have gone really bad, because my kids were the first one to see the one guy still in the house.
Yeah. That gives me like goosebumps, like hearing like and it's like, that goes to show, like, and that's a big fan. Like, I grew up with my mom, and like a lot of stuff, like, I always believe in hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that like, why do we have like some of these rules, and why do we do certain things, and why do I believe certain things? And I'm like, you know what, like, as a, just to go along that road, I believe that a concealed carry, right? I hope that, in my opinion, like, if you have a concealed carry, I hope you never have to use it.
Absolutely.
But the one time that it is required, like, what is the differentiator there? That literally could have been a story about how a local man and his children were murdered.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I look at like some of that stuff. Like, I would rather spend my entire, like, if I went the next 50 years of my life and I was never in another physical altercation, that would be great, because my knuckles are old and they're arthritic and I don't want to hit anybody. But at the same time, if I ever had to have, if that ever became a situation, and I would always use, I'm not a big drinker or anything like that, because I don't like being in some sort sense of out of control, but I always believe in being a level head, cool, calm, and collective. But being able to have the skills and the knowledge and like what to do in this situation, right? Like, that's where, like, when it comes to safety, my wife she's like, oh, Penn's in charge. Like, because she doesn't have she literally, one of her favorite stories that we were at a bar and some people were kind of like pushing each other, and I literally just grabbed her and slid her aside, and she didn't even know what was happening. And then the guy came over, I just grabbed him, pushed him back into the, like, just, stay over there. And she was like, what was that? I was like, well, there was a bar fight right there. And she's like, I didn't even see it. I was like, yeah, this is why I'm in charge of safety.
That's our role. That's the way you do it. You do it calmly, where it might not even be noticed. And that's what a real man does. Absolutely. That's, dude, we're out of time, but that was
man,
story to end on. I meant to get to it earlier, and I'm so glad you didn't let that drop. I think there's so many lessons in that story that the men that listen to this podcast, like, take note, be prepared, talk to your kids, make a plan, but let them go, let them have fun, let them experience. Such an amazing, valuable thing to think through and plan for. Thank you so much for being.
Thank you, man.
And what a awesome time. We will do it again. I'm telling you now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we got more stories. I got more stories. Do you have more stories?
Oh, dude, I got stories for days.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Brotherhood of Fatherhood. And thank you to our friend with 2 first names. I mean, he's going to kill me for that. Ben Timm.
Hey, a minute. Like, I gotta stop you. Everybody who you meet who has 2 first names probably has 3 first names.
Oh, what's your middle?
Because my middle name's Alan. How many middle names are there in the world that aren't also first names?
Oh, my. There you go.
So my name is Benjamin Allen Timm, right? Or Bat for short. But everybody who has 2 first names has 3 first names, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is so cool. So the man with 3 first names. Tim, thank you. And for the listeners, hit that subscribe button. And one little plug I'm going to give is someday our message may go against Facebook's policies. The Brotherhood of Fatherhood group may disappear outside of my knowledge. Who knows? But I'm not going to give my future of helping men and talking to amazing men up to one company. So because of that, on the www.brotherhoodfatherhood, there's no of, .com. Just go there. It's where you buy the little box where you can get the Brotherhood shirt, all that stuff. But just go there, let the pop-up come up, fill out the newsletter. I'm not sending emails right now, but if it comes to it, I'm going to be sending emails. So do that. Make sure you're on our newsletter, because by golly, that's the standard right now, is we're getting wiped off the face of the nation. And I know that men in the home as leaders are under attack, and it may be the reason they bring it. We have the wrong message. I don't know. We have the right message. If they say we have the wrong message, they're wrong. We'll move somewhere else. But in the meantime, protect yourself, protect your ability to be plugged into this incredible group, because in the future, I hope it's not too long, but in the future, we have some sick stuff scheduled. We have some amazing ideas in place, and you will want to know about them. These aren't Facebook things. These aren't online things. These are in-person, amazing opportunities to be around men like Ben, like all the other people that we've had on the podcast. And you just got to know. So be on the podcast or get on our email list, listen to our podcast. Have a great day. That's my order.